Well, good evening, everybody. Greg Pruitt here, Freedom Bros. I'm so excited. I'm solo right now. I can't remember the last episode we had where I was solo. So I think Brian's going to join us here shortly. And move my camera there. There we go. Dustin, he's always missing the show. I don't know what his deal is. I'm joking, of course. But really appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to have a fun show tonight, and we did have to have some shifts in our guest. We were supposed to have Rachel Haslip on, and unfortunately, she is not feeling well, which is why I've missed the last few weeks because I have not felt great. There is something nasty going around, some sort of flu or cold or something. I don't know what it is, but it's been pretty rough. So yeah, we are going to have hopefully Christy Zito on here shortly. And so we're really excited about that. And it looks like she may have already made it in. Let me make sure. Okay. But before we get into all of that, we have to roll our intro, which is just not the same without Dustin here, but that's okay. We're going to roll it anyway. Here we go. So I guess one of the things I missed, this whole year, I have just not been able to get on as much as I want to because we were revamping the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, and it just took a massive amount of time. And then I just kept getting sick all the time. And so thankfully, Dustin and Brian were kicking the show really good for me. And we really appreciate that. So I had some other stuff I wanted to do prior to bringing on our main guest for tonight. But because I know she is traveling, she's been out on the campaign trail, kicking it hard, and I figure I'll get her on so that she can get home and get some sleep because I'm sure she's exhausted. So with that, I am extremely, extremely grateful for my friend Christy Zito, who is running for state senator in District 8. For those that don't know, Christy is a former state senator from District 8 and took a few years off, and possibly the worst person in the world took her place. And so we are really excited that she is running again. And I wanted to bring her on to talk about a few things. And so let me bring Christy on. Christy, how are you?
I am good. How are you, Greg?
Good, good. It looks like there's still a little bit of light out there.
Well, there's a little bit, but I'm sitting in the parking lot, I think somewhere in Eagle. I just came down out of Valley County on my way home. We had a wonderful meet and greet with a bunch of Valley County residents today. It was great. It was just so good. But I'm sitting in my pickup and I have the little, I don't know which is better to have that up or down, but that's where I am.
Is that the light that's on the visor?
Like the mirror, the
Yeah.
vanity light.
No,
Is
that's
it
good.
better with
Actually,
the
that's
on?
better.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Let's do
All
that.
right. Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. And before we get started on the questions and talking about the U.S. Supreme Court thing on the transgender issue, we turned on all of the streams tonight, guys. So it's on Facebook and YouTube and X and everywhere else. But I really encourage everyone to subscribe to our Rumble channel. Okay, Rumble is the only place right now that we know we're going to get a lot of traction for our show and our videos. So please be sure to jump on Rumble and watch it from there if you can, and support platforms that are a lot better for free speech. So, so you were one of the first legislators I knew, and maybe I don't know if somebody tried anything before you. But recently, the U.S. Supreme Court came down and let Idaho's ban on mutilating kids. I don't know why we need a law for that, but okay. They let that go into effect. And it's not all roses if you've read through the law. But I want to get back to the fact that you are the first person I know in the legislature that actually submitted that prior to your departure. And then once you left, I believe Representative Skog was the one that ultimately introduced HB 71, which is the law that ended up at the U.S. Supreme Court. So tell me a little bit about your involvement in trying to protect kids from, being mutilated and drugged, all in the name of transgender ideology.
Well, it had started to become more and more of a thing across the country. And I'd spoken with some other legislators across the country who are running this type of legislation. And one of them reached out to me and said, what are you doing in Idaho? What's going to happen here? Because I had worked on abortion legislation a lot, in addition to the gun legislation that we always worked on. And I
Anti-abortion, for
told
those that don't know.
Yes, anti-abortion. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, anti-abortion. Protecting our babies born and unborn. And this legislation hadn't been presented at all in Idaho. And I'd asked around and people would say, oh, this never happens in Idaho. This never happens in Idaho. But then once I started to work on the legislation, I found out just how much this was actually happening in Idaho. And I don't know if you remember, but we had the bill drafted. We had input from a lot of different people on it. We included it in the female genital mutilation bill because you are mutilating children.
Yeah.
And so then we had that first hearing in House Judiciary and Rules. This was in 2019. And for this not happening in the state of Idaho, there were hundreds of people that showed up to testify about this bill. 5 testified against it. And the rest of the people that testified on how we should be able to allow 4 and 5-year-old children to decide that they are living in the wrong body and that they have the mental maturity to want to change their gender.
Yeah.
At those very young ages. And I to be right honest with you, it's one of the hardest bills I've ever carried, hardest bills I've ever worked on, because this is truly, in my mind, one of those forces of evil things that happen in our society, because, we're ending the ability to procreate. We're destroying their bodies and making them dependent on the medical establishment for the rest of their life. The surgeries are horrible. They are not pretty. What these people have to go through once they commit to these types of surgeries, the top surgeries, it's bad. But then when you start looking at bottom surgeries and the effects of that, when you look at what the medications do to the normal development of even being able to properly go to the bathroom and evacuate, it's horrible. It's just horrible. And so I was really grateful it was such a blessing when this finally went through. When we were able to make those provisions, once you're 18 years old and you're mature enough to understand what it is you're getting yourself into for the rest of your life and what you're giving up for the rest of your life, that's fine. But leave the children alone and let them be children.
Yeah, it's devastating. And I think, I know someone, a family member who's going down this road, and I just, kind of pleaded and begged, like, don't. I'm like, just, if you want to think it, I guess, but go get some mental help, right? Go talk to a counselor, talk to somebody, but don't start changing your body physically, because you can't undo it. And the crazy thing is we're still one of the only stupid countries going down this road, because I saw today, I just pulled it up here. Chloe Cole said, she shared a story, I guess this was yesterday, but she shared it today, that prescriptions of puberty blockers in trans healthcare has been paused in Scotland for people under the age of 18, right? So all these European countries who are typically even worse than us and started this stuff before we did are all going, okay, wait, this is not, like, this is insane. Like, this is freaking crazy. We are letting these young kids drug themselves, and then, like you said, doing those surgeries. I can't look at the surgery thing. Like you said, the top surgery is kind of weird. I mean, obviously you see the scars and stuff, but when they show you their arms, when they're doing the fake penises, okay, on these girls, it's horrifying. Like it's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen, and we're just letting kids do this to themselves. It's crazy.
Well, we are, and adults are facilitating it. If you
Yeah,
had a parent who was, burning a child's arm with a cigarette butt, we would think that was horrible. And the other thing is just like when girls and young men who have bulimia or anorexia or stuff like that, this is the same thing as looking at them and saying, okay, you believe you're fat, you're anorexic, you have no body fat on your body at
yeah,
all, you're wasting away because you're starving yourself, you're making yourself puke, you have this eating disorder. We're going to do gastric bypass surgery because you believe that you're fat.
yeah,
Now, we're not going to do that. No one in their right mind would see that and allow that to happen. But that's the basic concept that you're doing here with these children. And Greg, the other way I look at it, so in our law, you can carry a gun when you're 18 years old. You can
yeah,
possess a handgun when you're 18 years old. We set it at 18 because we believe at 18 years old, you have the mental capacity and cognizance to make life-changing decisions. If you pull the trigger, that's a life-changing decision. Okay. That's where we set the bar for that. What is any different between that and these children, supposedly the children themselves, making these life-changing decisions? They become customers of the pharmaceutical and medical profession for the rest of their lives. This isn't
yeah,
something that you just shut off. You don't, you can't just have the surgery and go down. The maintenance, when they create the new vagina and stuff like that, the maintenance for that is a lifetime thing. You don't just
yeah.
get the surgery and go on happily about your life forever after.
Well,
No,
it's a wound. It's an open wound,
it's
right?
an
Like
open
your
wound.
body is like,
Yes,
hey, there's a wound there. We need to close this up. And yeah, like you said, it's a lifetime thing of keep maintaining, keeping it open.
making
Like
sure
it's
the wound doesn't close. Yeah,
yeah,
and just I I don't I hate to get into the graphics of it, but I think that sometimes what happens is when we don't get so much into that, we don't really understand. This isn't just dressing a little boy in a pink dress or letting a little girl run around in cowboy boots and think she's a little boy. No, this is physically altering their bodies, their physical bodies. Doesn't change your DNA.
yeah,
It doesn't change that. It doesn't change what you were created. It
yeah,
just changes. And I'm so grateful, and I am so grateful to our attorney general for taking up this fight and
yeah,
going after it the way he did. You know, to we are saving children. He's
yeah,
saving children.
yeah. Well, and again, I kind of skimmed through the U.S. Supreme Court's opinion, and it's not all roses. Okay, I mean, so right now the law is able to take effect, which is good. But most of the opinion actually didn't even really have anything to do with whether or not it was constitutional or not to prohibit this. A lot of it was they talked a lot about the emergency requests. They're getting a lot more emergency requests. And the issue seems to be, and there was justices kind of on both sides that said the problem is these lower court judges, and Judge Windmill's the worst. Like he is one of the worst judges in the freaking state, in the federal court system, I would argue. And it's this just blanket, like he threw out the whole thing, like just completely threw it out. And the Supreme Court justices are kind of like, okay, well, I think you went way too far, right? And just throwing out the entire thing and not letting some of it take effect and maybe some of it not or whatever. So I think we're going to see this again at the Supreme Court. Maybe not our law, but from another, because there are like 20 states with bans on
Right?
this stuff, and so yeah, it's so prayers that will hopefully be a whole. But you know what, Christy, we've had this discussion from the gun perspective, and for those that don't know, Christy is a pro gun champion, did awesome stuff for constitutional carry and stand your ground and SAPA and all that stuff. And when she was in the Capitol, and she's been helping Idaho Second Amendment Alliance on the outside now. Um, but it's funny because when we were fighting for constitutional carry, uh, the argument from the left was, oh, your brain is just not developed until you're 25. Your brain is not fully developed. So you shouldn't carry a gun. You shouldn't carry a dangerous weapon until you're 25 because that's when your brain's fully developed. And now we're like, oh yeah, you're 5 and you want to cut off your penis? That's totally fine. Like, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah,
It's
you're mature
freaking.
enough to make that decision. But, and
Holy
and then
cow.
the other thing is so I've lived in this body for 60 plus years now. There's no way I can. I struggle with this concept of I feel like I'm in the wrong body. How do I
Yeah.
know what it feels like to be in the other body?
Right.
Yeah, and it just none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. It's just a way to sterilize our children and make
Yeah.
medical patients and customers for the rest of their lifetime.
Yeah. I don't understand. Like, if you feel like a boy, then why don't you just wear some boy clothes, cut your hair short? Like, why in the world would you change your genitals? Like, that seems freaking insane. Like, it is insane. I mean, I
Well, when
can't
I was
grasp it.
growing up, we were called tomboys,
Yeah.
because in fact,
Yeah.
I was sure when I was probably 10 years old, I was pretty upset that Heavenly Father had made me a girl because the boys got to drive tractors, they got to be out in the field, they got to ride horses, they got to do all these things all the time. And my girl cousins thought I should play with Barbie dolls. But boy, I'll tell you, by the time I was about 14, I was really glad Heavenly Father had made me the way he made me.
Yeah.
Being a tomboy is one thing. Changing your gender is completely something else.
Yeah. It's insane. I
Because
think that's.
you can't change your gender. You can change or try to change what it looks like, but you can't change your DNA. You are what you are.
Yeah. Yeah. You can have a talk with God after you're dead, and you want to talk about why you got picked to be a boy or a girl. So, well, let's
Well, I'm
shift from that.
happy now.
Yeah, yeah. Let's shift from that a little bit. So, you're on the campaign trail. You're in a pretty conservative district. It's a new district now from when you last ran for office. What on the campaign trail? What has been, would you say, the top 1 or 2 issues that voters have been bringing up to you on the campaign trail?
Well, we hear a lot, and I've been on the phone a lot because I answer my phone when people call. But I hear a lot about the border. I hear a lot about, people coming in here and getting right on welfare, getting right on all these social programs, about the invasion from the South is what they call it. I still hear a fair amount about property taxes, about people working their whole entire life and then having to sell their homes because they can't afford
Yeah,
to pay the property taxes on it. I still have quite a few conversations. It's interesting. My opponent voted against House Bill 71. And there's another representative in our district, Matt Bundy, who voted against House Bill 71. 2 of the very few Republicans in the state that
yeah,
voted against that bill. And so when I'm talking to people about the issues that they're concerned about, because I want to know what they want me to do, you know, if and when we're successful and I have that seat, I want to know what they want. What's important to you that I work for you to accomplish. And it's funny, they will circle back to the transgender thing in the library issue. They'll talk about the
yeah,
border, they'll talk about the property taxes. Some people have different issues because of what's going on in their life. Like last night I spoke at length with a gentleman about access to public lands, and we were on the phone for a couple of hours about that. And at the end of our conversation, he circled back around to the transgender thing with the children. So, the issues haven't changed that much from when I was in there before, but there are additional, I call them social issues, that I'm hearing
yeah.
more and more about.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And it is weird how your district ended up with a senator and a representative, because I think there was only four or five, if I remember. It's been a little bit since that law passed, but yeah, there was very few that did, and it's kind of fascinating that that's one of the biggest issues that are on people's minds. But the legal immigration thing was a big issue during the session, right? There was a big divide on what the House and the Senate were going to do, and encouraging more illegal immigration to come in, and you have uh, Senator Guthrie down in Income pushing driver's licenses for illegal
driver's
aliens and all that stuff.
license. Yeah.
So
And amnesty, a pathway to citizenship. We have a pathway to citizenship. That there's been a pathway to citizenship since my grandparents came here in the early 1900s. They took the pathway to citizenship. There is a way. Coming across the border and then asking for forgiveness is not the same as asking for permission, and you need permission to come into our country. We've had a small army come in here. We're not talking
yeah,
about, there are women and children who are looking for a better life, families who are looking for a better life, but statistically what's coming across the border aren't women and children and families. And the border being porous like that, it adds to the child trafficking thing, the drug
yeah,
thing. It's just a complete and total disaster. And so to expect that we're going to be able to make a pathway for citizenship or amnesty, no. And we don't need them on the farms. We have a good H-2A program. A lot of the farmers in the area where I live use that program. They bring the workers over here. They have to provide them decent housing, a phone, a car, a good place to live, a good, clean, sanitary place to live. They don't stack them in some bunkhouse somewhere with as many as they can fit in there, pay them
yeah,
whatever they want. It's controlled and regulated, and they come and work, then they go back to their families. I know farmers who have some of these fellows who come back year after year after year after year.
yeah, yeah. And I've long said that the immigration system is broken. Clearly, we don't have a secure border, which we need to have. But the funny thing is, I don't have an issue. Like if the farmers can't find workers, then make it easier for people to come in legally to help. If there are folks who need work and they need to go help their families back and wherever they live, then make it a little bit easier for them to come in and work and then
Exactly.
get back. And then if they want to try and move here permanently, there's a process for that. But
Right, make
this
it a process. And it can be tough. It can be tough to get citizenship. But then also there's the issue that we have all these kids, because our child labor laws are so strict, that could be doing some of these jobs.
correct. Yeah,
It's not like, and the other thing that we have is we have this social stigma that work has become a four-letter word. Yeah, if you don't have a college degree, you're just not cool. And work seriously, hard, physical labor has become a four-letter word. And
yeah,
we need to change our mind about that, because all work is important and all work is valuable. And there's nothing wrong with getting your hands dirty and sweating and putting in a day's work.
yeah. Well, it doesn't help that our education system is trash, but we basically like, yeah, don't do homework, don't do tests. No, we don't even need to worry about grades anymore. We are breeding that in kids now to basically
Yeah,
say, oh, you're a victim of everything. You should just be able to pass and without doing any work at all. So it's getting
right.
worse, I think.
Exactly. I think so. I remember the first time I went to it was a little kid's baseball game. And I'm sitting there watching the game, and the kids are going back and forth, and runners are coming in and stuff. And I
Yeah.
looked at them and I said, well, what's the score? Oh, we don't keep score. It doesn't matter who wins. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it does.
Oh goodness. So uh how is the campaign going in terms of, do people seem motivated and like, hey, I really need to figure out what's going on in my district, or does it seem kind of slow and steady, or what's the feel like for you on the trail?
No, I think compared to other years when I ran, I think more and more people are engaged. I think, as I go around, I have a meet and greet every week in Mountain Home at the deli. And then every other Monday, we're at the All In Church. We have a meet and greet, Cookies with Christy. And I do that because I want people to know that there's a certain set time that I'm available to them. And I'm
Yeah.
really amazed I see people working harder. Just like today, there were probably 60 people there, I think, maybe more. And every one of them wanted to know, and every one of them wanted to take rat cards and talk to their neighbors, and engage the people around them. I'm seeing so much more of that now. um I forget who it was I was in conversation with the other day, and it really took me by surprise because they said, so many of us feel like we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like
Yeah.
we're on the edge of some sort of a precipice. And so I think that's encouraging people to be more engaged in the political process, to know who they're voting for, what the people who are in office are already voting for, and if there needs to be a change. People want to feel like those that they've entrusted with their future are not going to lie to them, that they're going to vote the way they say they're going to vote, and that they're going to vote to protect our family values and our bottom line so that we can afford to live comfortably.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody had a question. Mac looks like from over on Twitter X. I still call it Twitter, whatever. He said, "What's the turnout been like at your meet and greets?"
I think it's been good. It's been steady. We don't have 20 or 30 people at them because we do it once a week, but it's good. We had a little gal Monday night, and she had emailed me and she had some concerns, and she's, I just don't feel like, she says, I'm down the middle. I feel like either our people are hard left or hard right. I said, well, come to our meet and greet and we'll visit. And she came to the meet and greet, and we have other candidates for their offices there. Like we have PCs that have opponents, and they come, and Faye Thompson comes down and Rob Beiswinger comes down. And we sat there and we had a really good conversation with her. And I think at the end of it, she could see that, we're not that far apart. The things that are important to her are important to all
Yeah.
of us. And more than anything else, it's this rhetoric of some of us being, because I told her, I said, you've probably even heard people call me a right-wing nutcase. And, she kind of smiled and says, well, yeah, I've kind of heard some stuff like that. She said, but I said, really, we're not that far apart in what we believe. And she
Yeah.
said, no, and that's why we're here. So I feel like the turnout's been good. I feel like the response has been really good.
Yeah. Well, Dustin shared a meme today that was on Twitter that it's like the conservatives have basically stayed the same. It's the other side that has shifted so far to the left that even the people in the center are like, "Oh crap," those right wing extremists. And then you start talking to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I believe that, and I believe that, and I believe that." It's the far left that went way out there with this, like transgender and all that kind of stuff that makes the rest of us look quote unquote far right because we haven't
Right.
really budged into what we believe.
No.
So
No, I
yeah,
mean, there's nothing wrong with believing in family. There's nothing wrong in believing that you should be able to keep the money that you earned and then be charitable with it the way you see
yeah,
fit instead of the government forcing you to. There's nothing wrong with believing that our state budget should be balanced and not with 42% federal debt money that comes with strings. I don't see that stuff as being far right. I see that stuff as just being conservative, traditional values.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, well, anything else you want to add? And then you can also plug your campaign. You're actually our very first guest on the Freedom Bros podcast. We're coming up on a year. It's almost been a year. So I figured,
I
why not have
know.
Christy
Can you
back
believe
around the
that?
end of,
Huh?
yeah. So
Thank you. No, I know. That was fun. That was great.
yeah, so go ahead, do your pitch, and let people know where they can learn more about you.
Well, I'm Christy Zito. I'm running for senator in Legislative District 8. In this district, in this race, it's a clear choice. I've got a proven conservative voting record. My opponent, I don't like to talk bad about people. I'm not bashing him personally, but he votes like a California Democrat. You can find out about us. We have a Facebook page. Our website is zitoforidaho.com. You can call me on the phone. There's my phone number is everywhere on the internet. I'm not hard to find. If you have questions, call me. I would look forward to being your senator again and representing you in the conservative way that I did before. How was that? Did I do good?
That was good. That was perfect. Awesome. Well, we appreciate you taking time. I know you're probably tired and you are traveling from yet another campaign event. So we appreciate you stopping and taking time to talk to everybody.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll be back up in Valley County Saturday. Then I'll be out to Mayfield Sunday, and it just is we're just rolling, meeting lots of
Okay.
great people. It's an awesome experience for that. So,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Greg. Thank you for all your help and support.
Yeah, no problem. All right, everybody. Christy Zito running for State Senate in District 8. Thank you again for tuning in.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night. God bless.
Yeah, God bless. All right, that is Christy Zito. She is running for State Senate in District 8. And she was our very first guest on the Freedom Bros. I think May 4th is our anniversary date for when we started. So, excuse me, man. I've seriously, there's some like flu or something going around, and I've been sick for like 3 weeks. And I feel a little bit better today. Thank goodness, because I'm kind of back on it right now. But we really appreciate Christy taking the time again. And Rachel Haslip was supposed to join us tonight. She is taking on Speaker Mike Moyle. We're trying to reschedule her, hopefully for sometime next week. But she is not feeling well. So, all right, let's get to our next anti-endorsement. If you remember, we're running some anti-endorsements, right? People that are just not good people for the legislature. They are not good candidates. They're not good legislators. And so this week, our new anti-endorsement is none other than Senator Jeff Agenbrod, former state senator Jeff Agenbrod, in District 13. His record is just a heaping pile of trash. I mean, it is a liberal's liberal, if you will. So that is our next anti-endorsement is Jeff Agenbrod, who's running for state senate against Senator Brian Lenny, who is a fantastic senator and one of the most despised people in the Capitol by the media and by the liberal establishment, which makes it all the more better. All the more better. Okay. First of all, breaking news for those that did not hear, it would appear that Iran has been hit in their mainland by Israel. At least that's some of the early reporting. It's really hard to determine what actually happened, but it looks like the reports are that Israel has bombed areas near Isfahan and Natanz. I don't know. Everybody is saying that those are cities that do contain some nuclear facilities. Again, hard to know what's truth and not truth in all of this, but there's also been reports of explosions in Syria as well as Iraq. So we'll see what happens. Iran said that if you attack our country, we are going to retaliate with everything that we have, basically. So praying for peace, because, for those of us who have seen war and the results of war, there's nothing good about it. The leaders of these countries just, they're sitting back, sitting comfortably while the rest of us go and do their bidding for them. So I used to be a lot more hawkish, when I was younger. And it's much more like, oh yeah, just start bombing people, just take these people out and bomb, whatever. I was a lot more like that. And now I'm very much I'm not anti-war in terms of like you should absolutely defend your country. And by the way, if somebody attacks our country directly, you and this is what always frustrated us military guys is it's not some proportional response. Now, if you get attacked, man, you lay it out. Like you don't hold back, right? You make your enemy feel the full weight of what they have done. And so I'm very much not anti-war, but do not go to war if it is at all possible to avoid it. And so I'm glad people like Nikki Haley is not the nominee. She is a warmonger. And we don't need people like her and Lindsey Graham and all the rest of them in office. You got to send them all over to the Middle East. And if they want to go fight, they can go fight and do that themselves. Okay. We launched, excuse me. We launched a new series that you can find, and it's only going to be on the Rumble channel. Okay. And it's called Leftist or Liberty. and it's in some new episodes that I'm putting together, and we have 2 of them out so far. Okay, and the goal is, look, I've been doing this for a really, really long time, and every election cycle, these new groups pop up. Some of them stick around for a little while. Most of them end up folding up after one election cycle. But all these groups pop up, whether it's PACs or nonprofits or LLCs or whatever. And some of them use a lot of fake names, like, you know, Idahoans for the most conservative, legislators or whatever. And you look into the group, and then it's a bunch of leftists, right? A bunch of people who want Idaho to look more like California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, whatever. And so I wanted to do something that Idahoans could look to that says, okay, here's this group. Who are they really? And try to break that down. So episode 2 is the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. It's a short episode because I started it, and so it is liberty minded. We're trying to get one of each because of setting up stuff on the freedombros.com, freedombrospodcast.com. We were setting some stuff up, so I needed one for each. So I just did the ISA because it was super easy, and we are 100% liberty minded organization. In fact, I may even have some different views than some of you. There's been some discussion about the constitutional, let me rephrase this, the right to keep and bear arms. I believe in a very, very much a natural right of self-defense. And so somebody was asking me, like, well, what about these illegal immigrants that are coming across the border? And I said, well, the criminals are already going to carry. Okay. Do I care if some mom or some family or whatever comes across the border and they have a firearm for self-defense? I don't care. Like, I don't. I believe you have a natural, God-given right to defend yourself. I don't care where you're from. None of that matters to me. I think that should be replicated across the world. I think everybody across the world should be able to defend themselves. But I've never been someone, like, we even had this problem with constitutional carry. When we were pushing constitutional carry in Idaho, and we were trying to push it so that it applied to all Americans, we had some people in the 2A community that were like, well, screw that, until the state of Washington has constitutional carry, why should they get a carry here? And I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, this is not who we are. If the Constitution only protects a natural right, why are you trying to say that all human beings don't have a natural right of self-defense? And so I may have a different view than some of you on the right to keep and bear arms, because for me, I don't care who it is. Now, if you're a criminal and you're doing criminal things, then you should be punished accordingly. But whether you're here legally, illegally, from another country or whatever, I think you have a natural right of self-defense, and the criminals are already carried. So I think it's better that all the good people should be carrying guns. Every good person should be carrying a gun. So that's just me, I guess. Anyway, so we wanted to expose these groups and help you guys understand a little bit more about who they are. And my friend Tony helped me with the first episode. I was getting some research done, and the first episode is on a group called the Idaho Opportunity Initiative. And I was coming out of, and I'm not going to go into this whole thing here, because you can go watch the episode on Rumble. That's the only place you can watch the episodes is on Rumble. But there's a sign coming out of out of Rigby that says, like, don't, prejudice doesn't have a place in Rigby. And I'm like, what is this? And I look up this Idaho Opportunity Initiative, and I find this ad, and I'm going to play this ad for you guys. And I'm not going to go into the details of the group because you can go watch the episode. But we're going to watch this ad, and we're going to react to it because you guys you got to watch this, and you got to let me know in the comments what you think. I'd be really curious in the comments what you think. So let me play the very first segment. There's going to be 3 segments, and then we'll react, and you guys can go from there.
Aksa. Cool, it's nice to meet you. We're actually having a little get-together next door. You guys should totally come by.
Aksa, you're Middle Eastern, right? What are your thoughts?
Oh, actually, I'm Indian.
Close enough, right? I mean,
Hey! Could I get
Okay, so the whole ad's like a minute long, so I broke it up into about 20-second segments. So I watched this ad, and by the way, I think the people who made it were terrible. I don't think they did a very good job of making this ad. So you have this lady from India. Some white lady comes to her house, and I assume it's her neighbor. And you guys let me know in the comments what you think of this. Some white lady comes to her house and is like, "Hey, come on over." And so she starts flashing back into apparently some experiences that she has had. And this is apparently based off of somebody in eastern Idaho. Um, and so the very first one is, and of course, it's a bunch of racist white people, right? I mean, that's the whole point of the ad is Idaho's a bunch of racists and you need to be a better human being. And so here, oh, hey, look, I have a co-host to join me so I don't have to be solo the whole night since Dustin bailed on us. Let me go ahead and bring in, we'll get back to the ad here in just a second. Let me bring on Mr. Brian Allman from the Gem State Chronicle. How are you?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Excellent.
So
Got a brand new microphone, new setup, a little bit of new lighting, kind of a janky
yeah,
setup.
it's looking good, man.
will do.
It's looking good. I like it. Cool.
So I just got here. Apparently,
you were
we're all
at a
racist.
candidate survey, right? Or a candidate forum or something?
Yeah, I was out in Caldwell. There was the Republican women out there put on a big candidate forum. I only caught part of it because I went to another event first, and another Republican women event. There's apparently lots of Republican women out there, and they all have events on the same night. So, but yeah, it was a quick rapid fire thing.
Okay. So overall, what were your feelings overall on the event?
Overall, it was really too rapid fire to get an impression. Each person had 90 seconds to do an intro and then 30 seconds to answer a couple of questions. And then they had to shuffle them off and bring on the next set of candidates. So it was quick. And the questions were, what do you love about Idaho? Or how should we protect Idaho's agricultural industry? That was really the most in-depth question. But it was interesting to see just how the people reacted to each other. And it's funny. They put the people in the same race right next to each other. So you see Tammy Nichols and Lori Bishop right next to each other, and Sarah Cheney and Lucas Kaler sitting right next to each other. And,
Interesting. Okay. So
you're talking about how we're all racist in Idaho?
Yeah. Did you see that first?
I did.
The first part of that? Okay. So what are your thoughts on what you saw there? I'm kind of curious.
I don't know. It feels like it's exacerbating, or it's trying to make, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. I feel like it's only effect is going to make things worse. It's going to make people assume that their neighbors are these unrepentant racists when I don't think most people are like that.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I got into in the episode that I put together. Now, look, and I said this too, the very first guy, that's an inappropriate joke. Okay. I mean, you maybe shouldn't be saying, oh, well, India and Middle East, oh, it's all the same thing, right? Not an appropriate joke. But it was interesting because they had all white people in there. And I'm going, look, I was in the military with people from all different backgrounds and races and everything else. And I heard a lot of jokes in the military that were what that guy said and a lot worse. And I'm not saying it's okay, but you would see people of all races laughing at the stupid jokes. And you know what I mean? And so, but it's interesting that they chose to portray, just the racist white people in this whole thing. So it's kind of interesting. So I'm going to show the second segment, and then we can kind of go back on something from the first one.
A pound of bacon, please.
I thought you guys didn't eat pork.
How's your day going? Fine. No, that's okay. We'll hang back tonight.
Come on, you have to come. Seriously, there is food, there's kids over there, they're playing soccer. It's gonna be a great time and
Okay.
Okay. So actually we got to go back to the first one because in the second so they call on the website, they call it microaggressions, right? These are all microaggressions. And in the second scenario, she's eating lunch and she's got her work around her, and some women come walking through, probably the racist white women, and they come walking through, and she's got her work and she kind of starts to move it, and one of them waves and she says hi and smiles, and then they keep walking. And on the website, they're like, why didn't they sit down with her? And I'm like, well, maybe you idiots in the ad should have made her like looking sad, eating her sandwich. Instead, you've got her surrounded by her work. Maybe they were like, hey, she's busy. We don't want to interrupt.
Microaggressions are the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Because real racism, actual racial slurs, or telling somebody that they're inferior because of their racial or ethnic background, or having different legal standards, we've had that in our history, but that's really not a thing anymore. And so it's like the supply of racism has mostly dried up, and they needed to create new demand, so they created this new category of microaggressions. I mean, asking someone where they're from is supposed to be a offensive thing. People ask me where I'm from because, well, you don't look like you're Idahoan. I don't know how they can tell, but they do. And when I visited foreign countries, they say, what part of America are you from? Or occasionally, if they're, a little confused, what part of Canada did you come from? But it's, it's the same idea. People are curious, people are interested, but they've turned that around, turned, things that could be just an innocent way of connecting with someone into pathology where, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. This whole thing, I don't like the people that made the ad. It just kind of blows my mind. Again, the guy that's like, oh, I thought you guys didn't eat pork. I mean, it's like, okay, maybe not something I would just assume from someone, but so they chose that one, and then the next one is like the grumpy cashier, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, I don't know that I've met very many cashiers that are like super. Even if you're nice to them, like they're a cashier in Biden's America. There's nobody's happy.
And that's the thing about microaggressions. If you have a cashier who's white and a customer who's white, and the cashier is rude to the customer, you think, well, that's just a very rude person. But if there's a difference in races, then it's not just rudeness, it's racism.
Yeah. So and so then you have to go back. So you got these four scenarios. And then what's interesting is the way they made this ad, the white lady comes over to her house and she says no, right? She tells the white lady, no, I don't want to go to your house. And I'm like, maybe she's just a mean lady, the lady at the house. Like, what? Why, if you're trying to make a point that, hey, if you're nice and neighborly to someone, that's fantastic. And instead you made this lady look bad. Because now everybody's like, well, maybe she's just bitchy and like, like seriously, like I don't understand. And then, that if you and I made this ad and we said, and it was like, hey, come on over and play some soccer, like they would totally say that was some sort of racist remark that, because people outside of America, the only thing they know how to do is play soccer. And
I was just at the park this afternoon playing soccer with my children and some neighbor kids. It was a lot of fun. I didn't realize I was committing a microaggression by doing so.
Oh, it's so terrible. Okay, so before we get to the last and final segment, I don't even know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it. Our other co-host is apparently at the gym, and so we're going to bring Dustin on against my better judgment.
Oh, this is the worst thing you've ever done. How are you guys?
Oh, it's Dustin in his natural habitat.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I figured that every once in a while, we should represent our symbol, which we need to update for you, Brian. Maybe add a book or something. I don't know, or a pen, something. But I just want to ask you: do you guys want to come over to my house tonight? If you don't, it's a microaggression because I'm fat and.
We're fat shaming you.
Yeah, if you don't come over to my house tonight, you're fat shaming me. So I don't know.
have you seen that ad before, Dustin?
No, that was the first time, and I'm glad I tuned into this excellent podcast that I didn't know about. So I'm learning all sorts of things about my whiteness that I did not know at all. You know what's funny about all this is I play on a football team, as I talk about way too much on Twitter, and the most racist guy who's actually like comfortable making fun of every race is the black quarterback. He makes the most racist jokes, and it's like, okay, and he knows how uncomfortable it makes everybody, and it's just like, yeah, that's okay, because dude, real racism is not a thing anymore. There are some racist incidents, but it's not as wide. To Brian's point, it's not nearly as widespread as anybody thinks. So I don't know, man. It's just these people are profiteers who need to grift to make money, and tell you. I mean, even Max Kendi makes. I mean, his business model is fantastic. It's just terrible what he's doing to our cultural psyche, and I don't know. I don't know how anybody brings value saying that everybody is racist, and if you do this, you're racist. If you don't do this, you're racist, because that's exactly what he teaches. It's the most insane thing ever.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So
anyway,
people who believe in microaggression should go watch a Dave Chappelle show or a Mel Brooks movie and watch their heads will explode.
Oh my gosh.
well,
yeah.
and to your other point, Brian, if microaggressions, if you are able to like report them to the person and say, hey, you didn't invite me, or you invited me to play soccer and that was a microaggression, or you didn't come talk to me while I was eating my sandwich, that would be one thing. But like, if you read Coddling of the American Mind, they put up posters in the college bathrooms at NYU and said, if you have been microaggressed, please call this anonymous tip line. So there's no accountability for saying stupid shit. Like none, zero. You can just say, my professor looked at me the wrong way, or maybe wore a burqa to class or something. Like, I don't know. Like, it's insane. But the conversations aren't happening face to face, so it's a very cowardly way to live your life.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I gotta go get my lift on, guys. I just want to say good show. You guys are amazing.
You know
I
what?
love you both.
You're gonna end up on that one guy's Twitter channel, the gym guy that calls out the
Joey?
people for filming. Yeah, Joey.
No way. No, dude, Joey Swole is a boss. In fact, I listen to him. I watch his shows or his episodes whenever they come out, and it's a really good gym culture thing. So yeah, pay attention to Joey Swole. It's so funny, so funny.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
All
love
right,
you
man.
guys.
Yeah, have fun. All right.
I was wondering what the fellow gym goers were thinking there.
Dustin doesn't care. He doesn't care. I love it. All right. Okay, so let's play the final segment here. Let's see. We got where to go. 1 second. Make sure I click on number 3. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't gonna take no for an answer, so okay. We'll see you soon.
It doesn't take much. Neighbor well.
Okay.
Well, that's very sweet.
And it's funny that, again, given how crazy the left is, she like looks back at her husband and her husband's like, yeah, I approve. You can go ahead and do it. I'm surprised it wasn't the other way around, right? The husband was like begging the wife to go over or something, right? Like there's some stuff in there that it's a far left propaganda, but they still didn't go far enough for a bunch of the leftists, I'm sure. So I just look, I don't have any issues with being a better neighbor, right? Be a better human being, talk to people, do nice things for them. And in the episode that I put together, I like the Pass It On commercials. Okay, you've seen those, right? The Pass It On Foundation for a Better Life or whatever it is. Maybe. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen some of those commercials before. If not, go to Pass It On YouTube. And they have these really nice commercials that are like, hey, sharing or this or that. And they don't make it about, hey, everybody in Idaho is a racist. Everything that you're doing is microaggressing people of color. You need to be a better human being. I mean, it's just completely insulting to our state.
I remember learning how to play cricket at a company picnic at one of my past jobs from our H-1B Indian coworkers.
Okay.
It was an interesting experience.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have this, the whole microaggression thing. It puts a pall over things. It puts a like a wet blanket on conversations because you're afraid to say anything because
Correct.
what if it's a microaggression? What if I get reported? And so you don't want to say anything. And it actually makes it harder to be friendly with people and to build relationships.
Yeah, yeah, correct. Do you watch Last Man Standing? Have you ever watched that show?
Never seen it. I haven't watched TV in 10 years.
No, good for you. Good for you. Well, you would actually like Last Man Standing if you did.
That's
But
Tim
anyway,
Allen, right?
yeah, it's with Tim Allen. Yeah, at one point his daughter asked him to speak at commencement ceremony or some college speech, and she hands him like this 4 pages of microaggressions, all these words that he can't say, and he's just like, I can't do this. I'm not going to do it. So he ends up not doing the speech because he's like, I'm going to offend a lot of people. That's what I'm going to say. So that's terrible. All right, well, let's switch gears a little bit. So Gem State Chronicle, you've been up to quite a bit lately this last week. Kind of give people a rundown of what you've been working on and what they should know.
Let's see. Well, my project that I've started today is candidate interviews. I'm reaching out to everyone in the Republican primary, even those that I might have criticized in the past, even those who might not be considered the most conservative. I'm just trying to reach out to everyone. I want to have some conversations. Want to record some Zoom calls, talk with them, ask some tough questions, ask why they supported this bill or that bill or opposed to this one or that one. And then post them as part of the primary pulse on Gem State Chronicle, where it can be another resource where it can help you get to know the people who are running. I'm trying to find that lane where I can say what I think, but also be able to talk to people. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a hard one to find, so we'll see if it works out. But some of these challengers might be in the legislature next year. Some of the incumbents might still be there next year, and I want to be able to have that open line of communication. We'll see how it goes. So I'll be recording those over the next few days. I'm reaching out to legislators to get them on the schedule, and then I'll be posting them as soon as I have everyone from each race recorded, so that I post them at the same time.
Are those going to be video interviews, or are these going to be audio interviews?
Video. I recorded one with Cornell Racer up in District 1 this morning, and we're just doing a Zoom call. I'm recording it, and then I'll put it up there. And when I say editing, I only mean like chopping off the beginning and the end and any technical difficulties. I'm not going to chop up the words to make people say weird things. I do believe in free speech. I believe in allowing people to just say their piece, and you bring your best argument, I'll bring mine, and we'll throw it up there.
Yeah, I mean, you may end up with when I was doing Idaho Dispatch, I did during the legislative session, I went out and did the same thing. I just tried to interview people from all walks of life. I ended up interviewing Brooke Green, who's a Democrat representative. But I kind of had to first show that I wasn't going to, ambush her in the interview or, go off the deep end and stuff like that. So I think you could pull it off. It may just take some time to get some of those folks who are not on our side politically to, sit down and have a conversation. I mean, because I'm the same way. I think Dustin's the same way. We'd love to have people on here that we disagree with, even vehemently disagree with, to come on and hey, let's have some fun. That's America, right? Duking it out or having good, hard conversations that people don't want to have. Nor like we had Trent Clark on here a long time ago, talking to Trent Clark, and we do not get along. Us and Trent. So anyway,
he and I disagree on a lot of things, but we will often argue in Facebook comments or in the comments on my Substack. He'll chime in there. Actually, the one that he jumped in on was yesterday. I called it the most important bill you missed this year. It was a House bill that Mike Moyle and I don't remember the other co-sponsor. It's blanking now. And it's going to bug me. So hold on 2 seconds. Sponsor Vito Barbieri. Representative Barbieri was the other sponsor. Anyway, and basically what it does is it sets into law that when there's an issue relating to administrative rules, rules that agencies have created, if there's any challenge to that in court, then the court must evaluate it what's called de novo, which means as if this is the first time they've heard the argument. They can't look back at previous case law. They can't look back at publications from the agency explaining how they interpret it, which is a really interesting idea because it's chipping away at the ability of the bureaucracies to simply, make rules and then interpret their own rules and enforce rules. So, and it also includes a clause saying that if there is ever any ambiguity, then they have to rule on, lean toward preserving individual liberty and restricting the power of government, which we'll see how it actually plays out in practice. But I thought that was a good law that was passed, and it did not get any attention. IFF rated it; they gave it a +1, but didn't write about it much. I went back and watched the House and the Senate debate. It was nobody debated. The sponsor presented the bill, they voted, and they're done. So it's like one of those things that sneaked through without much attention. But I just wanted to bring it some attention. It correlates with at the federal level, something called Chevron deference,
Yeah.
which for the past 40 years has been, that courts will allow agencies to interpret their own rules. And that's looking likely to be overturned here in any day now, as soon as the court announces their next set of opinions.
Yeah. So 2 questions then. What was the breakdown on party line on that bill? And then what was Trent arguing that it was a meaningless bill, or what was his argument?
No, so the breakdown was in the House, it was party line, and in the Senate, it was almost unanimous, with only Senator Ron Taylor, a Democrat, who voted against. And Trent agreed with the bill and agreed with my interpretation that it was a good result, but he couldn't resist the chance to come out and hammer and say, well, Taylor voted against it, but if you had supported Lori Likely better and she'd won that seat, then, she would have supported it too. Which, I mean, it passed the Senate 32-1-2, so it really didn't make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
And I don't know, opinions differ on the, how the Senate would be different if Lori Likely had won that seat. I mean, she might have voted for 1 or 2 more conservative bills, but I mean,
not much. There's not much difference. we know that. We know
see,
that.
I say that knowing I still need to reach out to her to set up an interview. So I don't want to be too mean, but I mean, that's, from her time in the House, she was a moderate Republican at best. That's just the way it is. Correct.
Yeah. Interesting.
So
Interesting. Yeah. Overall, I mean, the battle lines, the battle lines have always been there. It really hasn't shifted. There's various factions now. You have the Main Street Caucus, and the Main Street Caucus is completely mobilized, trying to take out the conservative wing of the party right now. And, we got, a month and a couple days before we find out if they're going to be successful. And they are spending a lot of money. Like, the amount of money that we spend in Idaho from when I first started doing this to now is freaking mind-blowing. How much, like a Senate or House race back in 2012 was, $15,000. I mean, you weren't really spending very much money. The PACs weren't spending it has really increased dramatically, especially in the last 2 cycles. It's astronomical.
Well, speaking of the Main Street Caucus, that was my Monday piece. Just looking at them as a group and how they voted and what they're up to. I really need to, I'm going to revisit that because there's some questions out there. Are they acting as a PAC? Because what they did is they formed, Representative Josh Wheeler formed an LLC called Main Street Idaho Caucus LLC or something to that effect. And so he's the chairman of that LLC. And they bring in money. And I've heard people say that it's dues from legislators. I'm not exactly sure if that's right, but there are several legislators over on the Sunshine Report who show paying $1,000 to the Main Street Caucus, this LLC. And what are they doing with that money? Well, they have a website. They do podcasts. They hired an executive director who was a former staffer for Congressman Mike Simpson. And they also interviewed him on one of their podcasts. The question is, are they a PAC? Are they promoting candidates? Well, they might not be saying vote for these candidates, but they're saying, hey, look, these candidates are really awesome and it's election time and we need to keep them. It seems to be going very close. So I'm going to look a little closer at that. But as for Main Street Caucus itself, at the forum tonight, right as I was walking in the big forum in the auditorium at Valley View High School, apparently the question was something about, what do you think about factionalism or, caucuses or something, because Representative Brent Crane was answering, and he was saying that he didn't like the idea of other caucuses, whether it's Freedom Caucus or Main Street Caucus. He thinks that the only thing you should be part of is the Republican caucus, which I get where he's coming from, but at the same time, factions have always existed. This is just putting a name on it. So you have the, if you go to Gem State Chronicle and go back a couple pages to the Main Street or Dead End article, I took the average scores from both the Freedom Index and the Republican platform percentage, which so it's two different organizations doing two different methodologies. But in both cases, you have the Idaho Freedom Caucus is really conservative. The Main Street Caucus is really not conservative. And the unaffiliated Republicans fall right in the middle. So, whether you agree with the numbers or not, I think what it shows is that the Main Street Caucus is the left wing of the Idaho Republican Party, while the Freedom Caucus is the right wing.
Sure.
That's I don't see that as a controversial statement. So when they're going home to their people and saying that they're common sense conservatives and proven conservatives, I don't think that's really the case.
No, it never has been. It's the word conservative in this state doesn't really mean much anymore, to be honest. I really started, I think, saying I'm a constitutionalist, you're a constitutional conservative or something, like, because it does not. I hate campaign season. I really do. I mean, I love it and I hate it because I hate seeing the flyers, and because every single person in that place that's a Republican's like, I'm a conservative, and I'm going, well, your voting records are miles apart, so somebody's lying. Well, somebody is not telling the truth.
Everybody has a different definition of conservative, and they define it to fit themselves. Really, it's like putting the cart before the horse. Does conservative mean that you support business and make sure that business has subsidies and tax breaks so that they can be super successful? Yeah, some people define it that way. Others say, well, none of that. Is it conservative to are we a conservative state because you still have to go to state-run liquor stores to buy alcohol? I mean, that's a little bit weird, but I guess some people might define it that way. Are we a conservative? And actually, if anybody watching wants to, hear more about this, I'm going to be in Cascade on Saturday evening at the Valley County Lincoln Day dinner, and I'll give you a little sneak preview. I think people a lot of times will use supposed principles to be a shield against doing the right thing as a way of disclaiming any responsibility for what happens. And the example that I always use that keeps coming to mind is Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, the previous governor, who vetoed a bill to ban child gender mutilation like we have here.
Yeah.
And his explanation was that it's a conservative Republican Reagan principle to not get between a family and their doctor and, micromanage their private decisions. And that's the most ridiculous thing, because I think the principle of protecting life goes above that. But, he was using that as an excuse to avoid doing what was right. And I think a lot of people do that. Well, we can't tell businesses what to do. We can't tell them that they can't fire people for not taking the COVID shot because that violates conservative principles.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds there, but this battle has been going on for a while. It's why years ago I stole the Rocky Mountain heist and I started talking about the Gem State heist, and everybody kind of laughed for a long time, and now everybody talks about it because it is happening here. The political realm is and I think I said this on Twitter, it's a bare knuckle fight. It's a blood sport. And the liberals, they do not care. On either side, they don't care. The ends justify the means, and they are coming for all of it. And right now, if they get rigged choice voting through, and if they take out all of our people, it's going to be a long fight to get it back. And so, I hope people are paying attention. I hope they're watching the interviews that we've done here on the Freedom Bros podcast, and they're studying the Gem State Chronicle stuff that you're putting out, and all of that. I hope that they're doing that, because we gotta wake people up, and that's been something I have not been able to figure out for the last 10 years since I started talking about the Gem State heist. Was how the heck do we wake these people up? The Californians that everybody complains about, they're actually more awake than a lot of the native Idahoans that I talk to. And there are a lot of native Idahoans that are awake now, but back then it was the people from out of state that were like, oh yeah, I saw this happen. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do this. And the Idahoans even now are still kind of like, even within the 2A community, the Second Amendment community, like, guys, you can't rest. We have to just keep our foot on the pedal, keep our feet on the necks of our enemies, and keep passing pro 2A stuff and protecting it with everything that we have. And they're like, oh, it's Idaho. It's fine. We're good. And I'm just going, oh my gosh, I can't even.
Well, if you think about what the state of our country and our culture, the left, just kind of as a descriptor for everything the left stands for, woke, CRT, DEI, socialist ideas, all of that. That's the de facto, enforced religion in the government bureaucracies, in entertainment, in news media, in public schools, a lot of private schools too, in everything. And so our culture is moving leftward really fast. So just standing still is hard and takes a lot of courage and a lot of hard work.
Right.
And I think most people, it's too much. Just go with the flow, accept the new normal, and don't fight it. And the people who fight it, they're pilloried. They're called extremists. They're called radical, and
racist, and everything else.
Nobody wants to actually go through that. So it's easier just to go with the flow, even in Idaho.
Yeah, no, 100%, man, 100%. Oh, shoot. All right. Well, I think I've got everything out I wanted to get out for the evening. Do you have anything else you want to add, Brian?
No, that's it. Just stay tuned for candidate interviews. I'm really excited to have some conversations. I'm working on and I say working on it's germinating in my head. Something about a prominent pro-life organization that is apparently going astray. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
And
I know what you're saying.
So
okay.
I'm sorry I missed Christy Zito. She's always fun. And
she came on earlier. I said, hey, come on at 9:30, and she popped up at 9:01. I was like, well, and I knew she was traveling. She pulled over to the side of the road. So I was like, I might as well do this now, because I don't want her to sit around on the side of the road and get mugged or something. So yeah,
that's neat. She stopped everything to just come chat. Hope it was good. I'll have to go back and watch it.
No, she's awesome. Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome. Okay, well, everybody, be sure to check out Brian with the Gem State Chronicle. I don't have anything else for tonight. Again, subscribe to our Rumble channel, and then go check out the new episodes we have of Leftist or Liberty. I think you'll enjoy those. We're going to put a lot of those together. So take care, everyone. Let's roll the closure here, and then we are good to go. God bless.